Hello and welcome to Stage Perspective. My name is Charles Peters and we're sitting here with Allan Glick, captain and pirate, and we are actually sitting on the HMS Surprise, San Diego Maritime Museum. This is a ship that was used in the film Master and Commander with Russell Crowe, also in Pirates of the Caribbean 4. We're actually sitting in the captain's quarters. We thought this would be an appropriate setting, and this is our very first live interview, so we hope you enjoy it. Thanks for being here, Alan.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
An honor.
Well, I don't know about honor, but we'll see how it turns out.
It's honor amongst thieves.
So, Alan, you are a captain, and you've actually been a captain for a long time. I know that you were a captain in the Caribbean,
Right.
And you've sort of piloted all sorts of ships throughout San Diego and elsewhere, mostly sailing, but you've also piloted some very large ships. So.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
One of the other captains a few years ago called me an aqua slut.
So what's the largest ship you ever piloted or captain? And is that a proper term to say piloted or captain?
It's all used interchangeably.
Oh, okay. So
the largest ship I've captained is the Californian.
Oh, okay.
Here at the Maritime
And
Museum.
what is that, 100?
140 foot
140
topsail schooner. It's got
Yeah.
a topsail and top gallant, based on a ship that was designed and built in mid-1800s.
Yeah, wow.
I had quite the honor.
It was a revenue ship, so it would...
A revenue cutter. The
Yeah.
revenue service predated the Coast Guard. They would patrol the coastal waters instilling maritime law,
Right.
and more importantly, chasing down the smugglers, because
Right.
tariffs were the only income for governments. So not a big warship, but as a topsail schooner, she's fast.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen her out on the water when she's at full sail, and she just goes, she's very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you become a captain? And that's sort of a two-part question. Like, how would someone become a captain? I'm sure it's changed a little bit since you first became a captain. And also, why? What was your, like, an early influence of why you said,
Okay,
this
so-
is what I want to do?
Yeah. It's been an innate passion of mine since I was very young. We're
Yeah.
talking kindergarten.
Yeah.
The elementary school that my brother went to, and the playground where the sandbox was this dilapidated wooden rowboat.
Huh.
And I was just fixated on it.
Huh.
And then when I entered kindergarten, that's where I played on
Yeah.
playground time.
Yeah.
And you know how your parents keep all this paraphernalia from when you were a kid, the pictures you drew and the things you wrote. Well, I was going through my mother's things, and she had these essays I wrote in elementary school, first, second grade. It was always about boats and ships.
Wow.
And pictures that I drew back then were
Yeah.
boats and ships.
Did you have any reason? I mean, is there a film that you saw or a TV
Yeah.
show that you enjoyed? There's no, like, real straight line to
connection.
that. Just
It's-
something random, yeah.
Well, my father has a theory that I was conceived on a boat.
Oh, well, that may be, so.
But no, it was just innate, a passion growing up. And I would do chores and save my money because I was going to buy a boat.
Wow.
And around...
Did you buy a boat eventually?
Well, yeah, about 12 years old. And my mother's cousin got a house right on the waterfront in Long Island where they had a dock, a slip on the canal.
Yeah.
And they had plenty of extra room.
Uh-huh.
And, they said we could put a boat there if we want. So my dad matched my savings, and we bought this 12-foot sailing sloop. Sanded and painted, and I had read so much that I kind of knew what to do.
Yeah.
But there's something about knowing what to do and then getting your hands on and experiencing it.
Yeah.
And my dad knew boats, but motorboats that he didn't own one, but operated. We spent that summer learning.
Wow.
And then the next year we sold that boat and got a bigger boat, 14-foot, one design, a Blue Jay, and started sailing that.
Yeah.
And it was wood. I was in the winter, it'd be in the garage, and I'd be, when it wasn't sailing time, winter, I'd be sanding and painting it and getting it ready for the summer. And the next year we got a fiberglass boat, and the county had this new recreational area, and through somebody's input, they created a sailing club. So on the weekends, on Sundays, they sponsored sailboat races, all small boats. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of boats were coming launched by a trailer,
Yeah.
and we joined in. We raced every weekend,
Oh.
all through my teenage years.
Wow.
So,
Now, did you mention this? I'm sorry. Where did you grow up? Where is
well,
this?
I never grew up.
Right.
That's a given.
Right. I can attest to that.
Thank you. Most people can't. South Shore of Long Island.
Oh,
The
okay.
Great South Bay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So
So-
winters are pretty. You
It
had to
was
really
chilly in the winter.
You had to like really hold
Cold,
up in the
yeah.
winter. Yeah.
But
So-
we worked, I'd work on the boat, paint,
Yeah.
burnish the
Right.
floorboards and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I would only go to a university or college that had a sailing team.
Yeah.
Didn't care what they
Yeah.
were. So my freshman year in college was at the State University of New York Maritime College. It was Merchant Marine Academy, State U, New York.
What brought you there? What took you there? Was it the sailing, or was it just your fascination with?
Okay, so
watercraft?
good. I took special engineering classes in high school,
Mhm.
and I wanted a career in the maritime industry.
Okay.
And I thought marine engineering, I
Right.
thought would be lucrative.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the money,
Mhm.
and it's in the arena
Mhm.
of boats and ships.
Yeah.
And so it was a military academy.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Yeah.
but that didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I was one of 4 freshmen on the varsity sailing team,
Mhm.
and I think the only reason I was on the team was my participation,
Right.
enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
let me tell you, I had been winning in my home waters
Right.
with that Bush League sailing club, and I had trophies.
Right.
But oh my gosh, on the collegiate level in New England,
difference.
the
It's a
bar
different
was
game.
huge, and
Yeah.
I was very grateful to make the team and
Yeah.
learned a lot.
Yeah.
And my roommate was on the team too, so we never had to go the weekend inspections. We never had to be there because we were on the sailing team.
Yeah.
And we ate in the dining hall with the sailing team, so
Mhm.
we didn't get harassed so much
Yeah.
as cadets.
Ah.
But I didn't really have any passion for engineering.
Right.
The math was difficult. The upper math was difficult for me, and I didn't have any guidance. So I transferred and went to Boston University, where they had a sailing team.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So that was the glory years.
Yeah.
And then after college, I kind of got racing out of my system.
Yeah.
I was no longer looking to race, but I started doing cruising on boats to get my sea time for my captain's license.
Had you made a decision to I want to get my captain's
Yes.
license at that point,
Yes.
like in college?
Yeah.
You said, this is where it's at, this is what I want to do. So,
Okay,
Yeah.
so what happened was in college, initially I was looking at, dollar signs, and that was
Mhm.
with the engineering.
Right.
Because they made more money than the people who were driving the ships.
Yes.
Actually, I had more passion for driving them than for building them.
Yeah.
After college, I was in South Carolina, involved in some enterprises and community events there. And in the summer, it gets pretty hot, and we're all hanging out at the lake. A friend had a house he was renting on a private lake, and that's in the heat of the afternoon, we'd all be hanging out there.
Right.
And I had my Cruising World magazine I'm reading, and there was an ad to rent a ketch in the Caribbean, for 10 days.
Huh.
It was like dirt cheap.
Yeah.
It was 1979.
Right.
And so I started talking it up with my friends, and we all went,
Ah.
and these were people from all the different little enterprises there in town, and just had the most exotic adventure
Yeah. And
in the Virgin Islands.
you ended up staying. I mean, really.
Well, what happened was, getting a taste of it, it was
Mhm.
like, that's where I need to be.
Yeah.
So when we got back, what was interesting, for months and years after that voyage, as I was talking to people, they would say, "Hey, I heard about these people that went on this incredible voyage," and they're talking about the trip I did, So anyways, that just was the catalyst.
Yeah.
And I had to I was compelled to get my captain's license
Right.
and go back as a charter yacht captain.
Oh, I see.
The
Yeah.
not the big industrial things,
Yeah.
but just, and I started getting my sea time.
Yeah.
And when I finished that, went to Florida to take a 4-month captain's preparatory course.
Wow.
Chapman School of Seamanship.
Oh.
I wanted to do it right. And it was a
Right.
very intensive program that covered everything. It's a very difficult exam, the captain's exam. There's many parts to it.
Right, and this is just to rate you for like a certain type of vehicle, then you have a certain type of vessel, then you have to like step up, right? You have
Well,
to get
yes,
more training.
so-
It becomes about size after that.
Yeah,
This-
so it's based on the sea time you get, the
Yeah.
tonnage.
right,
So I got 100-ton near coastal.
right.
And so that program was a very good decision
Mhm.
on my behalf. And shortly after that, I had, maybe a year later, had my sea time and sat for the exam. And it was
Yeah.
in Charleston, South Carolina, the Coast Guard office there. And I remember exiting their office that day that I passed, and the feelings of just exuberance.
Yeah, well,
You know,
it's a big
one of-
accomplishment.
It felt greater than graduating high school.
Yeah, I can
Because
imagine.
high school, college, you don't have a specific direction yet. At least
Right.
I didn't, because
Yeah.
I.
Yeah.
But there, I was on my direction.
Yeah.
And
Now, is this different from, say, like, I've talked to people locally where they go, oh, I'm a captain. And it doesn't sound like they went through anything like what you went through. Is that this, do they essentially have a similar license to you? Now, obviously, I
Yes.
know that you are
No.
you are licensed for much larger vessels, and even the things around here at the San Diego Maritime Museum, like the Californian and the San Salvador, they don't just let anybody come in and take those out. You have to really go through a lot of training. I guess my point is, it's a big deal. I'm just letting you, the viewers at home, know that it's a big deal to be able to captain the San Salvador or the Californian. That is not something that you can just walk in and do. So my question was, someone who just has a captain's license, are they in similar camp as you, or is your intensive training, is that extra? Or?
First of all, I am so honored to be one of the staff captains at the
Yeah.
Maritime Museum
Oh, yeah.
do these ships.
Right.
It comes with experience.
Sure.
You could have your captain's license where you answer all the questions
Right.
correctly.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
theory is that in getting your sea time, you develop the hands-on skill. That's
Right.
the theory.
Right.
But there's always that but, right?
Right.
But I was on this waterfront. I was a known quantity.
Right.
So
Well,
the
of
people
course.
here at the museum had seen me operating a
Well,
lot of
once we
boats.
get to that point in your
And then-
career, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I just meant at that time, I wondered about you. You took the extra road, you took the extra time, you went the extra mile to make sure that you were thoroughly trained. I mean, I'm a scuba diver, so it's the same kind of thing. Like, I know people that will get their certification while they're on vacation in, Hawaii, and I'm like, not the same as taking the full course stateside and really studying. We both have the certification, but it's not quite the same. So I align it as similar to that, I guess.
And I was able to demonstrate my skill
Right.
to the director here.
Sure.
That
Right. Yeah.
was what differentiates
Yeah,
the ability to actually demonstrate your skill.
yeah.
The ability to work with the crew.
Hmm.
And the evaluation that I got from the other captains who were trained.
Right.
So it was all
Yeah.
about,
And I have to say that about you. That's a big part of you being a captain, is that you're not, I remember a long time ago I had a conversation with our boss.
Okay.
And he goes, you have to understand that Alan is different than other captains because he's really nice. And not all you guys have it easy because we were mates on the ship. And he was like, he's really nice. And he doesn't make you do all the stuff that if you were a real mate on a real ship, the things that you would be doing. And I go, well, I realize that. But yeah, you have a real relaxed quality about you. I've seen you where you get, I've seen you when you get slightly, I've never seen you like get super, super upset, but I'm sure you have, but I mean, I've seen you have to deal with a difficult situation. And it's always in a relaxed sort of, we need to deal with this kind of in a certain way. I don't ever see you scream and yell, which I know captains do. They'll get mad and,
well, my theory on screaming and yelling, I'm a certified sailing instructor with the American Sailing Association, although I haven't had time to do that lately.
Yeah.
And I always when I was teaching my students is that when you see the captain screaming and yelling at the crew, they probably did not give clear instructions.
Right.
So the crew is doing what they think the captain needs rather than what is needed.
Yeah.
So generally, that's generally the situation.
Right.
And I always say it's a great crew that makes the captain shine.
Oh, well.
And I've had some here at the Maritime Museum.
You have amazing crews.
The crews.
Yeah.
They're from all different walks of life. They are so committed.
Yeah.
They take ownership of these vessels, and
Yeah.
they're
And it's
one step
interesting.
ahead of me getting the work done. So when we're doing sailing,
Yeah.
they're focused.
Yeah.
They're doing their job
And
right,
it's-
and we're laughing all day long. We're having fun.
Of course, but it's also interesting to point out that most of them are not being paid.
No, I'm not being paid.
They're volunteers,
Totally.
as far as I know. And I mean, when we're on the Californian, it's usually a crew of 9 or so.
Mm-hmm.
On the San Salvador, it's usually a crew of 11 or thereabouts,
But
right?
thereabouts.
And they're all there, and all of them are pulling their weight and doing their thing and making us look
Amazing.
good. So yeah,
It's one of the working here at the Maritime Museum is probably the epitome of my career.
yeah,
That being the prestige of tall ship
Yeah.
and challenging,
Mhm.
a new avenue to learn
Yeah.
the topsails and
Right. Yeah.
and working with these people.
yeah. Because there's a history here. I mean, you're piloting a ship that was. I realize it's a recreation, but if you take the Californian, its date is the 1850s or 1830s, right?
It was the original ship it was based on was built in 1847.
Okay,
so
so
in the
thereabouts.
1850s.
But I mean, you're basically captaining a ship that
Yeah.
from the 1850s, so
Yeah.
or 1847. So that's that's something, and that's not that's different than being on a yacht or being on a big sailing ship.
What's great with these reproductions, yes, they have an engine, so we can get on and off the dock and maintain
Right.
a schedule. On the old days, they didn't have schedules. You got there when you got there.
Right. Yeah.
But when we're sailing the ships, it's done in the traditional heritage fashion.
Right.
The use of the lines,
Yeah.
what landlubbers call ropes,
Right.
the commands, it's all traditional. And the crew just loves it because it's their efforts of working that have
Yeah.
the ship works.
Yeah. And you really love history. I know you talk a lot about history and talk about maritime history.
Yeah.
And I know you have a great fascination from that. You
Well,
read a lot. And
In my
Yeah.
education, one of my favorite classes was history. I
Right.
took a lot of history classes. At Boston University, I was just doing general liberal arts. I really had no career direction.
yeah.
So after a while, I needed to get out of there and graduate. So with just a few classes, I got a degree in education. And my first job was in that realm was social studies history. And I loved it. It was just a short term filling in. And then later, the serious teaching I did was a sailing instructor.
Yeah.
But I had that history, and I love sharing it with my guests when I do sailing tours.
Right. Take me back to the Caribbean. So you were in the Caribbean. You came back stateside.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about these guys that were in the Caribbean, and you're like, you got your captain's license. So how did that?
Okay,
take you
so
back?
then the first job I got as a captain, as a professional captain,
Mhm.
was the International School of Sailing
Mhm.
in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
And I got it right quickly. I had an education background, I had this
Right.
sailing background, and I was like, whoa.
Right.
And they had these 39, 40-foot modern sloops that we would take 4 to 6 people out for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
every day it was a curriculum, and every day introducing new skills and the repetition of the skills we had learned.
Yeah.
Anchoring every day, so your anchoring skill was developed.
Yeah.
I swear I learned more than the students because I was subjected to conditions and weather that I hadn't experienced,
Right.
and I was able, reefing. When you have a racing little sailboat, you don't reef.
Right. Yeah.
But the functionality of reefing and I knew navigation, but now I had my hands on doing it.
Yeah.
So for 2 years, I really honed my skills. I mean, that was such a blessing to have that opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, in South Carolina, Columbia, I had been involved in a lot of community things there, and these folks opened this restaurant. Oh man, they were dirt broke when they opened the door, but 2 years later, they had a lot of money.
Right.
And their accountant said, you better do something with this money, pay taxes. Well, they had a passion for sailing, and they bought this 48-foot state-of-the-art modern sailboat,
Wow.
and they wanted me to captain it. Now, years later, we're still good friends, many years later.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. I was meeting them in South Carolina, and I was thanking them because them giving me that job was just catapulted my career.
Right.
Just opened the door wide.
Yeah.
And they said, Alan, you were the only one we wanted on that. We did it with you in mind. It's like, whoa,
Yeah.
Because they put it in the charter yacht service in the Caribbean. So they wanted someone they knew and trusted to be looking after their major investment, 2,000 miles away,
Wow.
1,500 miles away.
Yeah.
And we had a wonderful working relationship. And I started doing the charters in the Caribbean. We take people out. I had a crew who also cooked. And
How many were your crew? How many crew
One.
did you have? Just one?
Oh, that's all we needed.
You had one crew and you had somebody you cooked and...
Well, the crew was the cook and me.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
How long would you go out for? Would it just vary like a week?
Mostly
or-
a week, sometimes
Yeah.
10 days.
And how long did you do that for?
About 3-4 years.
Wow.
And then we would only take mostly 2 couples, 4 people, sometimes
Right.
6.
Yeah.
We prefer. So everyone had their own cabin.
Yeah.
Guests had their own cabin. We had our own. I mean, it was air conditioned below deck, and
Yeah.
just every day dropping anchor at another exotic island. These are the islands where the cruise ships don't pull in and the jets don't land.
Right.
So I was thrilled to share the West Indian culture with my guests.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it wasn't the Hyatt or the Marriott,
Right.
it was the local people with their
Wow.
stuff.
Yeah.
Their food, their family recipes, their decor, their music.
Yeah.
I was just excited.
So,
And then later I got my own boat and did day sails with that.
yeah. Is
Sailing
that
and snorkeling.
in the Caribbean?
Yeah.
Wow. And do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite story from the Caribbean? I mean, you were there for 3-4 years. I'm sure there's many.
No.
Does one like a very memorable moment stick out? I mean, it's probably a lot of it's a blur because you were in such an
Blur.
exotic location.
And exotic location where, and I've talked to other people, captains and people who visited there.
Yeah.
You get back to the States and you just can't find the words to
Right.
describe the ambiance and exotic
Yeah.
of the experience
Yeah.
there. There's so many.
I've only been there a few times, obviously not like that, but I, visited. the
It's
Caribbean.
interesting. In
Yeah.
40 years, that industry of these charter yachts has grown enormously.
Right.
I mean, I remember when I first sailed there were places I had to get my chart out. There was nothing. Am I right in the spot I'm trying to be?
Right.
And now it's a carnival.
Oh,
where there'd be
wow.
like 3 or 7 boats anchored. There's 100 boats anchored.
Oh, wow.
Now, even though it's crowded that way, it still maintains a good ambience. It's
Yeah.
still better than that high-rise office cubicle downtown.
Exactly.
Still-
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
anyways.
That's always my take. It's like it beats doing that. So yeah.
And you know what? I was proud to see the economic growth those people had.
Right.
Because there's no other economic opportunity, but these yachts brought it.
Yeah.
Anyways.
How long were you? You were in the Caribbean for about 3-4 years, and then
Oh, more than that. I came back to the States and then went back for
Right.
another 3 years.
Right. So it's a long time. So what kind of ended that for you? Is there something you're just it's a personal life? And
Yeah, a little personal life things
family
happened. My
things
dad
like
had
that.
business here, and I
Right.
came here to help him with that.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And which failed miserably.
As businesses sometimes do.
It was challenged.
But so now you're here. When you say here, you mean San Diego.
Yeah.
So.
And
yeah.
I started making inroads
Right.
with the charter companies.
But you hadn't been living in San Diego prior to that, or had you?
My parents were.
Yeah. So that's what brought you to San Diego. Essentially, was your
They
parents.
retired and moved here.
They came here. Oh, okay. So you started making inroads here. What are some jobs that you had around town besides? Was it all captain related, or
Yeah.
did you have? Okay. So what are some of those jobs that you had?
With the different charter companies here, teaching
Right.
and corporate regattas were big convention destinations, so they'll rent a
Yeah.
fleet of boats and do a
Yeah.
team building race around the harbor.
Right.
Sunset sails with some of them.
Yeah.
I worked with San Diego Harbor excursions. They had the
Yeah.
shuttle boat taxi. I
Right.
kept that for a while.
Yeah.
And then
You used to drive the ferry too. I mean.
no, that was
Did you ever drive the ferry over to Coronado?
No.
You ever did that?
No.
Oh, okay.
the same company I worked with had that, but
In a different way. So it's a similar thing, but not quite.
yeah. And then I started. I had learned how to skipper a parasail boat in the Caribbean.
Right.
So there's a parasail boat here that operates out of Mission Bay,
Yeah.
and I would help them out on occasion and make tremendous inroads there.
Yeah.
Reliability, knew what I was doing.
Right.
The usual.
Right.
And the owner of that company was the one who built the Treasure Seeker.
Right.
Which
And
was a pirate-themed tour boat.
Right.
Which I'm sure you're headed that way.
Yes, I am headed that way. So that, I mean, I know that's where you met the owner, and he ended up, he had a dream of he wanted to have a pirate ship. He was real into pirates.
He had a dream.
And he bought an old tuna boat out of San Francisco, gutted it. It was like 83, it ended up being an 83-foot vessel. I think the original tuna boat was like 60-something.
Yeah.
And then he built on top of that with carpenters and engineers, he built the facade of a pirate ship. It was very beautiful. I mean, like, he hired
the details.
He hired a Dutchman or a German gentleman who was a carver who actually carved, a lot of things on the ship. So it's a lot of detail. And it had a foredeck and a main deck and the poop deck, actually, where the captain was. And then there was a little storage underneath the poop deck. And that was it. But it was a great performance arena.
The saloon below with the bar.
The saloon below with the bar and a table and so forth, and room to spread out a little bit. But that, he had the idea of starting a sort of tour entertainment thing. And how did he approach you with that?
Okay, so he was still in the building process, and he's showing me the plans, and he's sharing his dream with me. His original plan was to operate in Mission Bay and do, focus on kids' birthday parties, children things.
He had a friend back. East that was doing that, and the ship was very limited because I think the ship he was using was more like a barge.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of those around the country and world that they try, and none of them came close to the ambiance and detail of the Treasure Seeker.
Right.
None of them came close.
The Treasure Seeker was like a real ship, looked like a real. I think the only thing I've only seen a few similar to it, and that was when I went to Puerto Vallarta.
Right.
And there were two giant ships there that look like real pirate ships. But
the only thing that I felt was to its detriment was the masts were rather stubby. They weren't in right proportion, but that was because he wanted to get under the bridges in Mission Bay.
Right.
And as things evolved, he put the boat in service here in San Diego Bay, which was an excellent move because then. He approached me when he was showing me the designs because he knew me.
Right.
He knew I was reliable, and he wanted me. And I was a little hesitant because I was questioning the business model of the kiddie show thing.
Right.
He said, "Oh, you just need to drive the boat." So he put it into service here in San Diego, and which was an excellent move because it wasn't just a kiddie thing. We were able to do a lot of adult things.
Right.
And at first, I just drove the boat. But then, as he had, even before you came on, he had these other for-real-looking pirates.
So he decided to move the ship actually and open here in the bay as opposed to being in Mission Bay.
Yes.
And that was a really wise decision because it was much more visible here in the bay, just with people seeing the ship in the water.
I believe it gave us more exposure and a greater opportunity for what we could do.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And I joined the ship. My story is I came to it and through a series of connections to get to the ship. And my first impression was there was a gentleman on the ship who was a really good performer, but he was not really. It was more geared for like smaller kids, for little kids. And my impression was, I remember standing on the deck of the ship and going, "This is not going to last. This is like, this is going to die a slow death because it's so limited when you limit things to just little kids and you don't think about, wait a minute, this should really be more geared for families." I remember getting on the phone and having like an hour and a half conversation with the owner and saying, "Shouldn't it be like this?" And he kept going, "Yes." "Shouldn't it be like that?" He goes, "Yes." And he got so excited. He goes, "You should really talk to this other guy." So we ended up connecting. And we ended up revamping the whole show, and that's where things started to really change. And the whole idea of the show was being immersed like you were joining the crew of the ship. And so we inducted you as part of the crew. And that's where the acting started, and I don't know what your impressions were when that started, because at that time we slated you to just be the helmsman, which was fun, but not quite the same as being the captain.
Your joining was transformative.
Yeah.
Totally transformative. Up until that point, I was just driving the ship.
Right.
But with your involvement developing this interactive show and the whole concept, I slowly was getting more involved.
Yeah.
Developing an outfit.
Yeah.
Just as simple as
and lines.
outfit.
I mean, we gave you lines to say, and so
Yes.
what was your impression of that? You were like, oh no, now I'm having to perform as well, or? But you were obviously very excited about it because
I was
the more
thrilled.
we gave you to do, the more you did, the more you wanted to do, and you were
I
just
had no
boasting with
qualms about
ideas.
it.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a. I have performed.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. You told me a story the other day about being on stage.
Well,
when
it
your
started-
early
my earliest
performances.
performance was kindergarten.
Yeah.
They did some goofy little. I don't even remember what it was.
Right.
The parents would come in and look. And all
Yeah.
I remember is I was the grandfather clock in the show, and somebody with cardboard and paint that had this clock.
Yeah.
And people were impressed that I could stand so still and speak a few words. And then that was fun. And then in elementary school every year, the 6th grade class would put on a very elaborate stage production, and they would always do these Gilbert and Sullivan musicals.
Right.
The music director in the school would play piano, and some of the kids who could sing would sing. And I always watched these shows, and I thought they were really cool. So when I was in 6th grade, I signed up to participate. We practiced on Saturday mornings, and they created this elaborate set and elaborate costumes. And fortuitously, the show that they did that year was Pirates of the Penzance.
Yeah, you told me that. It was Pirates of the Penzance.
I was in the back row, in the
Right.
back, just.
Now, have you always had a fascination with pirates? I mean, we talked about this before, that I now run San Diego Pirate Adventures, but I didn't grow. I don't have a memory. I'm sure I liked pirates, but I wasn't like into pirates. You've kind of always had a fascination. It's probably a tie-in with the maritime history, a little bit, but
Oh, that's a good. I do know at Halloween I was a pirate.
yeah,
You can see that picture.
Right.
But of course, back then, you were either a pirate or a hobo.
Right.
The girls were witches.
There wasn't a lot of
There
choice.
wasn't a lot of choice, But I got into that. I think the passion came later with studying the history.
right, yeah,
Now, there's always been pirates. It's slavery on the water, but we romanticize the pirates of the Caribbean. Thank you, Disney.
yes.
It's-
And the golden age of
The
piracy
golden
was
age
like
is that.
1650 to 1740 or something like that.
yeah.
Where the pirates that Blackbeard and Roberts and all of those guys, they lived during that time and sort of
I
ran
think
around.
The passion started growing when I was in the Caribbean,
Right.
because the waters I was sailing, the
Right.
places I anchored, were where the pirates hung out.
That's where they were.
That's
Yeah.
where they were. And that history was quite a bit flaunted there. And I got a pamphlet, a book, The Pirates of the Caribbean, that was focused on those pirates in that area. And I was just fascinated with the history. And I think that's where the passion started.
Yeah, there's Hornigold, and then there's and
Ding Dong,
Crow,
Wilmer
and-
Dane, you had the bells.
Yeah, and just on and on and on. Yeah,
And it was
so
a fascinating history.
yeah.
So
I like that
That's
too.
where- that's
it's
where it
very
started.
fascinating. For me, the same thing. It wasn't a big deal growing up, and I remember being around it, but it wasn't until I did a film that I got into that. And I got, like an actor, I did a lot of research, and I got so into it, I was like, I don't want to stop doing this. And that's what brought me to The Treasure Seeker.
once you started developing that show,
Yeah.
the more now it's a passion.
Yeah,
Um,
and then we eventually there was a moment where I had to step away from. I was playing the captain on the ship, but I wasn't. I would pilot the ship every once in a while, ceremoniously, and drive the ship. But you were the helmsman. But then there was a point where I had to change, and I had to become another character in order to facilitate just duties on the ship, and it didn't make sense for the captain to be doing that. So I created this other character. And when we moved here to this, we had done several events here over the years under that other umbrella. And then when we moved here and we started doing our own thing, that just continued, right? So
which
we
is
said,
good.
you know what, we need to just make you the captain. You are the captain. We should just make you the captain. You're the captain. Be the captain. So yeah,
That's worked out so well.
yeah, and it has worked out well.
Because what you were doing didn't really change a whole lot from
Right.
being the captain. But,
Yeah.
that was Mr. Slick. Anyways, what's interesting is traditionally, the museum hates pirates.
Right.
Because they
exactly,
resent
yeah.
the public going by and say, "Oh, look at the pirate ships!"
Right.
Because they're not pirate ships.
No, none of the ships here, just so you know, at the Maritime Museum, for those of you watching, are pirate ships. The
No.
only thing that makes a pirate ship is that they're flying the Jolly Roger
Right.
over their mast.
Could be on many different kinds
Could
of
be
ships.
on any ship.
Yeah.
So these are just tall ships.
But it's what they see in
Just
Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's what Hollywood presents.
Yeah, it is. So,
But anyways, what we've started doing is participating in their festivals.
yeah. Well, they have
And-
Pirate Days. They have
Well, they had the
Festival Sail, which is all the
Festival
tall
Sail.
ships, and economy and just
and
things going
Charles,
on.
we taught them that the public loves pirates
did.
and will pay for it.
Yeah, we've changed a lot of people's minds
And
here.
they,
'Cause-
the powers that be here, the directors of the various things, when
Yeah.
they witnessed our show, they really liked it.
Right.
They liked our authenticity.
yeah,
They liked the humor.
yeah,
And over the years, they have found more and more opportunities
Yeah.
for us to be performing
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
Now we feel like we're part of the museum.
Yeah, a little bit. I feel much more inclusive now than we ever did,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is just by them observing and seeing what we do, and also that it's not a historical voyage by any means, and our show is very much geared towards entertainment, but it also creates awareness because there are things that we do on this
Based
show.
on authenticity.
Yeah, so there is education that is involved, but
The authenticity is just to help us lead into the comedy.
So what do you like about being a pirate? Because I know that you're like me, that once you started on that road, you kind of just started wanting to devour more and more of the history of that era and learn
Right.
and
I like
so forth.
getting into character.
Mhm.
One thing that's
Yeah.
you have inspired is to stay in character.
Yeah,
Don't break character.
yeah,
And in doing that in my mind, I try to be historical. But of course, a lot of that is the
Yeah.
image the public
yeah,
has.
yeah,
I like the creativity. I think what's amazing is our show has a good structure, but it's always a work in progress.
Right.
There's always new
Yeah.
bits that pop up.
Mhm.
The improv we can do as situations
Yeah.
arise.
Yeah.
So I'm really enjoying the creativity part.
yeah. And we collaborate as well. That's
And-
the other
oh,
part.
yeah,
like you'll come up with an idea and we'll talk about it and we'll implement some things.
And
So
it's just that creative process
right,
has just been ecstatic. Okay, so I was the one, when we're going past the buoy here in the middle of the bay,
Right.
and there's a sea line, I'm the one that said, hey, look, there's a
There's
everyone said, there's a mermaid.
there's a mermaid.
Yeah,
and everybody
so-
ran.
Everybody-
Like it's funny to think about it, but they all run to the rails.
Yeah.
And it's like, are they really thinking there's a mermaid out there?
Well-
Maybe they think we put something on there. I don't know, but it ends up being a sea
sea
lion.
line, and the beauty of it, then you took it and started chastising me.
Right.
Captain, you've taken us off course once again.
Right, yeah.
Taken us off course,
Yeah.
wasted out time. When we get back to port, you need new spectacles. So
Right,
again,
yeah.
that creative process at building,
Right.
and then we kind of stay in character and theme, but then you're able to. There's some lines that are just irresistible,
Right.
Because you'll chastise and say, "Well, you all signed up for the pirate adventure,
Right.
not the marine wildlife tour, so
Right.
be another
We have to charge you
$12.50."
more, right, yeah.
And then pray we don't see a whale.
Right. Yeah.
The ability to go down that route
Yeah.
at all these different opportunities.
Yeah.
Yes.
We don't step out of that era too much. We
No.
we don't reference cell phones, and we stay pretty close in there.
But that, we do.
But we push that
Push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah,
But
so
it
absolutely.
works so well.
Yeah.
And that's the little things I think that the public just loves.
Yeah.
The gratitude was one of my favorite stories on the Treasure Seeker. We were doing the morning trip and an afternoon trip.
Mhm.
And the morning trip, I'm out there at the marina at the gate getting our passengers on board. And this
Right.
motorcycle gang shows up. And they look like they just came out of Central Casting.
Right, yeah.
The big mamas on the back,
Right.
the tattoos, I mean, just the whole image. They're there for the afternoon tour and they want to make sure they know where to go.
my
And I
gosh.
said, okay, just meet us at the gate here.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, oh my God.
We got all types on that.
So we have a bar.
Right.
And I'm worried about a bunch of drunken motorcycle gangbangers coming on board.
Right.
So this whole motorcycle gang comes on. I think we had 2 or 3 families at most.
Yeah.
And the trepidation as we leave the dock,
Yeah.
because it's interactive.
Right.
We're harassing.
We get right in their
We
faces
get in their
because
face.
we're essentially bringing them on as if we found them in a bar.
Right. They're not passengers.
Yeah,
They're not guests. We make
We
them
Shanghai
part of the
them,
crew.
essentially,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So anyways, I was so proud of the crew and you, because we just went and did our show and they're taking pictures and
Oh, they loved it.
laughing. And
Yeah.
So there's that part where we do the gun battle, counter
Right.
battle at Seaport Village.
Right.
And after that, I'm complaining that the decks are a bloody mess.
Right. Yeah.
So we hand out the mops, and what was beautiful about what we did, we made sure that it wasn't a kiddie show.
Right.
So the kids are mopping the deck because,
Yeah.
which was amazing that they're fighting for their
Right.
turn to mop the deck. But we also gave mops to the adults.
Yes.
So we could harass them.
Right.
And well, your house must be filthy.
Right.
You can't say that to a kid; they'll cry.
You mop. That's horrible.
So so the biggest, burliest motorcycle guy is there
Yeah.
mopping that to
Right.
the little kids.
Yeah.
And he's just going for it with a smile.
Yeah.
And he turns to me and he goes, "Well, I'm really good at this. I used to do this in the big house."
Right. I remember that. And he's actually trying to show some of the other kids, this is actually how you mop if you want to do it right. And I'm like, that guy's been in some places, I can tell.
They couldn't thank us enough
Yeah.
when they got off
Yeah.
the ship, if you recall. They were so grateful.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of the crew of the show.
Yeah. And we had long days. I mean, there were days where
Yes.
we would do like a morning voyage, we'd do another voyage,
Yeah,
we'd do
late
another
afternoon.
voyage, we'd do like 3, and then we'd have a break, and then we'd do 2 sunset. We'd do a sunset, and then we'd do an evening cruise. There were days we did 5 in a day, and I was like, they were great days, because it's like you walked home, and it's like, all right, I did pretty good today, So they would tip, the later ones would tip. The afternoon ones sometimes would tip if we pushed a little bit, but it was a very lucrative gig.
I
for a
remember
while.
the reviews we got from people who brought their kids there for their birthday parties.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And we did many adult birthday parties.
Yes. Well, the idea is it was completely immersive. I mean, you were on a real ship. We didn't drop character. We were like real pirates as much as you wanted to, invest in that. And we looked right and we sounded right, because a lot of local actors were involved in those shows and still are. So what is a favorite memory? You like that one. Is there do you have a favorite memory from, or a horrible memory from?
Well, there was a harrowing moment.
There was a harrowing
very harrowing
We
moment.
had a couple of those.
Every year, the surfing Santa is delivered by some kind of boat or craft to Seaport
Right.
Village. And
we had gained we had had nice press and gained some popularity, and this was like 2 years into the show, and they were like, would you deliver
Well, what
Santa?
was interesting, the way that happened was, as we would go by Seaport Village, which has a huge crowd on the waterfront,
Oh, yeah.
so for us that's an audience,
Mhm.
that's where we would fire our guns and make all sorts of noise.
Yeah.
And the public would just go wild, if you recall. They'd
Oh,
come
yeah.
running in the cameras.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we got word that people would like be in the shops, and they would immediately leave
Yeah.
and run.
All the restaurants would shut down and look at us.
It's so funny.
And the owner of the boat one day went there to try and, he always had a vision of operating out of Seaport Village.
Right, exactly.
So he goes into the stores. Can I speak to the manager? And now, when anyone walks in, can I speak to the manager? You're going to get brushed off. Yeah, they don't want to hear it. Oh, the manager's not in right now. Well, I'm with the treasure seeker pirate ship. And immediately, the managers would come run out. What is that? They had to talk to him
Yeah,
about that.
right.
Because they were thrilled.
Yeah.
I mean, they were absolutely thrilled with that.
Right.
So we got designated to bring the surfing Santa.
Mhm.
And the scenario was, we can't really pull up to the dock that's there.
There's no way to do that.
We're not fendered properly, it doesn't line up.
Right.
So we had that longboat
Mhm.
that had an outboard motor.
Yes.
And we put it there at the fishing marina, and one of our crew was going to take the surfing Santa
Right.
from our boat to the
And I think the scenario was that Santa was sort of like being held captive on the ship, and he was going to sort of fight and escape and then get in the longboat and be taken to the dock.
Yeah, which has an emergency ladder should you
Sure.
fall in.
Right.
Well, of course, it's a boat, so the engine didn't work. The engine crapped out. But the crew member was an accomplished rower,
Yes, he was.
so he was going to row out. Well, that day, the wind is howling out of the
Oh yeah.
Howling.
He was cursing
And the current was huge. He's rowing like crazy, and he's a strong man, and
He is.
the boat is sitting still.
Very, very experienced. We can
So-
say his name. It's Scott Amiot,
Yeah.
who was part of our crew.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And
And a very experienced seaman as well. I mean, he's
yeah,
a mate
wonderful.
here at the Maritime Museum and also on the Treasure
Yes.
Seeker. Really knew his stuff. Yeah.
knew his history. Oh, wonderful to work with. Well, now we had a fallback. We didn't have a fallback plan. We had to create one on the moment.
Right.
And there's 1,000 or 2,000 people lining the waterfront waiting for Santa.
Mhm.
And I can't go into the south part of that pier that sticks out, which is the Seaport Village part, because
Right.
the wind and current are going to blow me on there.
Right.
So I have to go to the leeward side where I'm blown off. I can't tie up.
Right.
I can't really touch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I maneuver the boat alongside the dock, and with Santa on the poop deck, the raised deck was level. He could just step off.
Yeah.
And he did
Very
that.
lucky.
And
Wow, yeah.
it was one of the most challenging docking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there was Santa.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. We had a couple of times. We broke down a couple of times.
Oh my
getting
gosh,
towed
you're at
in.
the festival.
And then one time at the festival, we had a new crew member. It was his very first festival. And it was his he wasn't even on the ship yet. He was on dock, and he was like, "Is this what it's like?" I go, "No," because we broke down and we lost
But it was
the
right here at the museum.
we lost the treasure.
We had just, between the museum and the cruise ship dock, we had just tossed the treasure chest.
Right.
And
And
surreptitiously, because it's all about getting
Right,
treasure.
exactly.
And as I turned the boat, completely lost steering.
Right. And so we were like,
So we were talking earlier about experience.
Yeah.
I was actually able to maneuver the boat to the cruise ship dock where they had those giant fenders and come gently
we tied up.
alongside.
And the police came and brought us our treasure. Goes, "Do you want this?" And I'm like,
They were
"Yes."
so gracious. They knew
Yeah,
our show
yeah,
and they
it's very
returned the
funny.
treasure chest. Oh gosh! And so we had called, since that was an inspected vessel, the owner had to call the Coast Guard to report this
Yeah.
malfunction.
Right.
And we got a tow back to the museum,
Sure.
and the Coast Guard came, and our directions from the owner was, don't talk about the treasure chest. And the Coast Guard steps on the boat, and the very first thing they asked me is, did you hit the treasure chest?
Right.
Which shocked me.
Right.
Because what they were thinking that
You
as
hit
we
the-
were-
you
that
hit the rotor, you
that
hit the- yeah.
we got disabled by
Oh,
hitting.
right.
Now look, if we hit that treasure chest, it would have been splinters. You
Yeah.
know.
Right.
And I said no. But that puzzled me. Well, it turns out those were the Coast Guard people who evaluated the construction of the ship. So they knew it, and they worked with the owner.
Right.
And certified it for carrying passengers.
Yeah.
So Arit gave them a free, them and their family, early on, free tour.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
they knew the show.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was-
Yeah.
Oh, that was so happening.
Yeah. Yeah. But now we do our show here. Unfortunately, that business is long gone. The ship is in Hawaii now. It was sold. And then it was from those sort of ashes that we started getting calls to do stuff here at the Maritime Museum, and I said, we needed to revive this, and so we're very much in our infancy, and trying to get the business back. We don't have our own ship like the Treasure Seeker, but we've been lucky to be able to do our show here on the Californian, and now we do it on the San Salvador,
Right.
which is very similar to the Treasure Seeker with the big open deck and so forth.
It
And-
plays well.
and
It
it
themes
plays
well.
really well. And of course, the San Salvador's all wood. It looks like an old ship. Whereas the Californian is an older ship, but it still looks sort of sleek and new.
Yeah.
But
Well,
we've been very lucky to be here as much as we have.
the way I look at it, it's kind of like the Blues Brothers. Just can't give it up.
That's right.
We just can't,
Yeah.
the folks who play with us, we just have so
Yeah.
much fun. It's so much part, we just can't give it up.
Yeah.
And we'll keep finding new ways to
Right.
do it.
Yeah. And it's really all about the show. I mean, the added bonus, the production value of being on the ship is amazing. But the show is really can be done anywhere, which is nice. So,
But what I was worried about was we have to use the Maritime's volunteer crew to physically, literally operate
Sure.
the ship. We don't
Right.
need as many because we're not doing it all.
A full
And
set.
I was a little worried about what their attitude would
Right.
be. Oh my gosh, they love it.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is I get some of the most valuable feedback from them.
Right.
They love the show. They love volunteering.
Yeah.
There's some that come all the time,
Mhm.
and we get that when we change things. We get valuable feedback,
Yeah. Yeah.
which has been very helpful to
Yeah,
us.
because we've changed a few things with
Yeah,
how we do
we're
some
always
things.
changing a few things.
Yeah. And you also had to develop your whole costume as well. We had a coat
My
match
outfit.
for you, your outfit. Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
And you know, I know there's some things you've hung on to, there's some things you've let go, and it's really coming along. I mean, I know you still
Well, I
want to add
invested
to
in.
it.
I just got carried away
Yeah.
and invested in that
Yeah.
coat and
Yeah.
weapons.
Yeah.
I got the black powder
Yeah.
pistol now.
That's right. You have a powder,
Sword.
black powder pistol.
And
Lock. Mhm.
I look forward to finding. I'm always on the lookout for more accoutrements.
Right. Yeah.
Jewelry.
Yeah, that's looking
And
good.
all. Yeah.
Is there any advice you would give to someone who is interested in becoming a captain? Like how they should go about? I mean, obviously that's a fairly straightforward process as far as like becoming a captain. But is there some sort of advice that you would say, be sure and do this on your journey? Be sure and do this as you're pursuing this goal?
As you get your sea time, try and learn as much as you can, the little nuances. You know, it's
Yeah.
amazing how many captains, I always judge a captain about how they can tie a cleat knot, how they can tie a line on a cleat,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, yeah. So make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Try and find a mentor that will show you the right way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can pass the exam but not have the hands-on skill.
True. Yeah. Like a lot of things. Yeah.
I was lucky, and that whole experience with the International School of Sailing and all those years
Right.
being challenged by the conditions in the Caribbean,
Yeah.
because like the Californian, it was a learning curve,
Yeah.
but the physics made sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
So even operating with the engine trying to dock, not that far different
The principles.
than
basically, yeah.
a full-keeled yacht. Mass and momentum and inertia.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
The San Salvador, oh, that's a whole different story.
Right, 'cause
There's
there's-
absolutely nothing typical about that ship, not
Right.
even with the engine.
Yeah, and if you don't know, the San Salvador is the ship that the San Diego Maritime Museum built as it's a recreation of Cabrillo's ship. Cabrillo is the gentleman who sailed into San Diego in the 1500s and basically discovered San Diego. So it's a Spanish ship.
Spanish galleon,
it's a-
1542.
And so it really is a very unique and beautiful ship, but they didn't want to mar the design of it by adding a bunch of modern things. So that it has a motor, but it's got a remote. So you basically stand on the upper deck
You know
and
what?
just use
the whole
remote.
ship. They spent years researching
Yeah.
archives on how
Mhm.
these things were designed and built.
Yeah.
There's no blueprint. They had blueprint. They had the design prints
Yeah.
for the California.
Yeah.
So it is a very accurate reproduction.
Yeah.
The thing I smile at, it's got the most modern engine room of any ship
Yeah.
skipper.
Yeah.
You know, the electrical panel.
Right.
That's all below out of
Right.
sight.
Yeah.
And there's no steering wheel.
Yeah.
It was 150
no
years
wheel.
later before they invented a steering wheel.
Right.
There's the rudder and the tiller and the whip
Mhm.
staff.
So no wheel.
But I've got this little box, and we make fun of it as a PlayStation.
Right.
With this little box where I'm
Yeah.
actually controlling the engines.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little handhold.
Yeah. So, do you have any final words about piracy? Like, do you have influences or maritime history? What are some things that people should watch or read? What things do you enjoy?
Well, what I enjoyed thoroughly was the series Black Sails, because I think that had the most accurate, very detailed description of the golden age of piracy. And if you're interested in nautical and maritime heritage, you must come to the San Diego Maritime Museum. The rich presentation of maritime and nautical heritage here is over the top, and there's a lot to learn here in that regards.
Hey, well, this has been Alan Glick, aka Captain Slick, on as a pirate, and we have been sitting in the captain's quarters on board the HMS Surprise here at the San Diego Maritime Museum. And if you've never visited this museum, you're missing out. It has got so much history and so many hands-on, tactile things that you can touch and move and experience what it's like to be at sea. And maybe you can even book a voyage on the San Salvador or the Californian. I know the pilot ship goes out, but check out their website. I'm going to put the link below. We've been in the captain's quarters. A real honor to be able to sit in this room and do this interview. And I hope you enjoyed it. Alan has been a captain for so many years and had so many experiences. It's a real pleasure to speak with you, Alan. And please check out the rest of our videos here. And if you like this video, please subscribe and like the video, and you'll be notified of other videos that come out. So we're going to say one last goodbye to Alan here. Thank you for being on the show, Alan.
It's a pleasure to share this with you. And I look forward to all the work we need to do in the near future with our pirate show.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.